The lightsabers in Star Wars have always been a point of contention, as some people prefer the modernized look of the sequel blades, while others prefer the prequel's more functional sabers. But while they've both got their quirks and design directions, the prequels used their designs way more efficiently than the newer movies. In today's video, we're gonna dive deep into some lightsaber designs and see why they matter, so keep watching. First off, not all lightsabers are created equal. Given how all those quote-unquote laser swords in Star Wars are powered by similar kyber crystals, you'd think there wouldn't be many variations between them, right? After all, the crystals are super mysterious and no one really knows how they work, well, apart from the fact that they can make some cool lightsabers. But while the Jedi of yore decided to bury their research on the crystals, that doesn't mean people after them couldn't tinker with the designs. After all, where's the fun in everyone having the exact same weapon? Not to mention, a lot of people in the movies don't even get to visit a planet like Alum to fulfill their Padawan journey and make their own sabers. Some people just build these things up from scrap, which makes their designs so unique from each other. Kylo Ren, for instance, powered his red saber with a cracked kyber crystal, and just because the crystal was unstable because, well, it's broken, you see its unstable beam as it crackles through the top and throughout the crossguards as well. Or you could just look at Mace Windu's saber, which, unlike everyone else, glows purple. The point is that Star Wars has managed to find a way to give each Force user their own unique lightsaber while keeping the function mostly similar. What's more, these sabers also vary a lot as we hop between different generations. And guess what? They've all got some very distinct features that separate them. Up next, the prequel trilogy's functional approach. The Star Wars prequel trilogy was extremely divisive when it came out back in the late 90s and early 2000s, but while most people are still not convinced about the writing in those movies, they've still grown to adore them despite their flaws. Now we get it, not everyone loves all the political mumbo-jumbo that comes with the prequels, and that's okay. At the same time though, these three movies arguably have the best lightsaber duels in all of Star Wars. In fact, we'd go as far as to say that even the newer shows like Obi-Wan Kenobi can't get close to the incredible duels we saw back in the day. Not to mention, the sequels are a whole other can of worms that we'll get to later. Why were the first 3 episodes so much better though? Well, for one, it had a lot to do with fight choreographies, as these were filmed more like synchronized dances. Admittedly, this does make the fights feel a bit too scripted, but honestly, things move so fast while you watch that it's just straight up impressive. Oh, and yes, actors like Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor did a ton of training to nail these duels as well. That said, perhaps one of the biggest reasons behind the free-flowing fights was the fact that these prequel lightsabers were light and easy to maneuver. They didn't have the extra bits and bobs that made them complicated, and all the designs were super functional. What's more, each one was built with the fights in mind. What's more, the prequel lightsabers are uniquely different. Of course, being functional isn't the only thing that's important. After all, we are talking about Star Wars here, a franchise that's known for its flashy, over-the-top weapons. Luthen's ship from Andor, for instance, just has 2 massive lightsaber beams coming out of it. The point is that while making the fights flow well is important, you also need to make sure these blades look cool visually. Thankfully, the prequels have a very unique way of making their lightsaber stand out. They don't go for fancy handles or strange contraptions that open up into a quad saber. Instead, they just switch up the formula ever so slightly, which is usually enough for the fans to engage with it. Again, Mace Windu is the perfect example for this, as there's nothing inherently special about his saber other than the fact that it's purple. Then again, when no one else has a purple lightsaber around you, then it is special. Also, did you know that the only reason behind Windu's different blade is that Samuel L. Jackson asked George Lucas for it? Pretty cool, right? Not to mention, the prequels didn't require changing a lightsaber. We get it, if some Jedi Master on the Council had some wacky saber, then it probably would have been pretty awesome. Still, just the fact that the prequels don't change their lightsaber designs much, and still manage to carry such an identity with every single one of them is a testament to just how good their designs are. Oh, and we don't just mean the blades themselves. You see, the thing with the first 3 episodes is that the people using these weapons designs are just as important as the weapons themselves. So you've got Force users with some very unique fighting stances that bring a new dimension to these lightsabers. On top of that, the dark side users aren't afraid of getting creative with their uses either. Darth Maul, for instance, has a double-bladed saber that opens up a lot of avenues for him to fight. And it makes perfect sense, because when it's his job to wipe out the Jedi, who usually travel in pairs, he can use these double blades to fight multiple people at once. Just go and rewatch either of his fights from The Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones, and you'll get what we're saying. Likewise, General Grievous uses 4 Jedi lightsabers at the same time to destroy anyone who dares stand in his path. Well, apart from Obi-Wan, of course. But again, that's the thing. All these designs are fun and unique, with subtle variations that don't go too over the top. After all, as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Moving on, the sequel lightsaber designs. Now, the sequels' design philosophy for their lightsabers couldn't be more different from the prequels. These are meant to be flashy and over the top. Not to mention, they're not exactly that functional either. Don't get us wrong, we're not saying these designs are bad or anything. As a matter of fact, we'd even say Kylo Ren's got one of, if not the coolest lightsaber in all of Star Wars. It's just that when you look at these from a purely logistical standpoint and begin to actually analyze what's happening, they stop making sense. Then again, isn't that the deal with pretty much the entirety of the sequel trilogy? In all seriousness though, we love the look of these things, but well, let's just say that if a prequel Jedi came up against someone from the Clone Wars era, they'd get absolutely obliterated. These sabers are heavy and often come with parts that, rather than enhancing function, end up hindering it. Sure, they may look cool, but that's about it. The fights, however, are worse for the most part, as they almost seem like each character swinging a 40-pound battle axe rather than a lightsaber. Like, the reason why Force users preferred these weapons was that they were nimble, versatile, and could adapt to a number of different situations. But when you see Rey and Kylo swinging at each other in The Rise of Skywalker, it looks like these blades are awkward to handle, and don't work as well. Coming up, Kylo Ren's lightsaber. Of course, if you've ever made the mistake of getting yourself involved in Star Wars lightsaber discourse, you know that there is one explanation for why the sequel's blades feel so heavy. Apparently, the reason why the fights aren't as good as the prequels is that the art of duels has been lost to time, and most of these people are self-taught Force users. Then again, Kylo was trained by Luke Skywalker, and Rey had Leia to help her out, so that argument kinda starts to fall apart as well. Still, let's just assume that they're just not great fighters. Do these designs get any better? Well, no. Turns out some of these blades have some super egregious flaws that are actual handicaps in fights. Let's talk about Kylo Ren's red saber, for example. It is arguably one of the coolest concepts we've ever seen in the franchise, with those cross guards and the unstable crystal. That said, while Kylo does stab Finn in the shoulder with his cross guard in The Force Awakens, he also runs the risk of stabbing himself with it. Like, the entire point of having that part on a traditional sword is so the blade won't slide down and cut the wielder's hands. Since sabers are made out of pure energy, however, you don't get that functionality at all, so it's just an unnecessary risk. Now for Dark Rey's double lightsaber. Dark Rey's blade, much like Kylo, also prioritizes style over substance, as it unfolds to turn into a double-bladed one. Why? Because apparently it's meant to show her staff turning into a lightsaber. But again, we arrive at the same issue here. Even if she wants to use a single blade, she's still gotta carry the weight of 2 swords with her, which would bog down her a lot during a fight. In comparison, Asajj Ventress, who was one of the main baddies during the Clone Wars era, had a lightsaber that did the same thing, except much more efficiently. Seriously, she could just split her sword into 2 weapons, making the whole process so much easier. Finally, the future needs to be simpler like the prequels. Despite being cool visually, the sequels' trilogy obsession with style over function just doesn't work. And the second you start thinking about it, it kinda breaks the immersion and pulls you out of the experience. The prequels, on the other hand, have this simplistic approach to their lightsaber designs that not only works in practice, but also make for some very memorable and fun designs. Like, even Count Dooku's curved lightsaber has a reason behind its existence. And we just hope that in future movies, Lucasfilm focuses more on the choreography of the duels rather than flashy designs that don't make sense. After all, Star Wars lightsabers should be an extension of the people who wield them, not a hindrance that gets in their way. That's a wrap for for this video, which era's lightsaber design do you prefer? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.